All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 9 in the NFL. We got the Sunday games to dive into in today's video, with the exception of Sunday Night Football. That will be its own video separately on the channel. But all of the other Sunday games we're going to dive into. I'm going to give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like some player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, if you do want to fade me, all of my final plays, so that I'm actually rolling with myself, all of those will be listed for free in the pinned comment. In terms of how we did last week, in this video specifically, we dropped an 8-0 day. Now, Thursday Night Football last week wasn't all that great. Monday Night Football wasn't all that great. But because we went 8-0 in that Sunday video, this video last week, we still had a very positive week. And we're already off to a tremendous start this week. Pumping some damn crowd noise. 3-0, all plus money bangers on Thursday Night Football between the Texans and the Jets. So let's see if we can, parlay, no pun intended, that momentum into this Sunday slate. Go ahead and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. Let's jump into game number 1. It's kind of a messy one. We got the Titans taking on the Patriots here. Titans coming off of a loss to Detroit, but who isn't losing to Detroit lately? They lost 52-14. Taking on the Patriots here, who somehow squeaked out a game against the Jets 25-22. In this one, I don't mind the Titans minus the points. The only sort of glaring advantage here between either of these teams, I would say, is the Titans defense. Now, yes, Detroit just dropped a 50 burger on them. I understand that, but, prior to that, they were looking pretty good. Good teams are scoring on them. Green Bay scored a lot on them. Good offenses, I should say. Buffalo scored a lot. Detroit scored a lot, but then you have, middle-of-the-road type teams, and the Patriots actually definitely below that. They don't have all that much success, so I do think that the Patriots struggle here. The problem is, do the Titans have the offense to go out there and score? I mean, they're pretty dinged up. Pollard, Levis, this is a messy game, but nonetheless, like I said, the only sort of green light I see here would be the Titans defense. So give me the Titans on the spread. Maybe I'd buy a point or a half a point here to get it to 3 or 2.5. Keep an eye on the pinned comment for all my final plays, but this is a messy one. Even if we do bet Titans minus the 2.5, I'd kind of shake in my boots thinking, well, where's the offense going to come from? If Pollard's out, I could see Calvin Ridley having a good game, because earlier in the year, I guess more so than late, he was kind of involved in some end arounds and red zone runs and whatnot, so maybe that's a position to look at for him in terms of a player prop, but overall, this is not the most appetizing game, not the sexiest game on the slate, but give me the Titans minus the points, as well as, I guess I have to lean under. When I talk about defense and both offenses kind of stink, give me the under 38 as well. Let's go ahead and move on. Next game, we have the Browns taking on the Chargers. Now, if you watch H to H, the football show I do with Tasso here on the channel, I did have a play in this game, and I'm going to stick by it. It's got a good chance for me to kind of double down in that show, as well as bet it myself here individually this weekend. I like the Browns team total under 21.5. This is a legitimate Chargers defense. I do believe that at this point in the year. Now, they haven't necessarily played the most electric of offenses, but I look at that Chiefs game, they held them to 17. I look at Arizona, who is a dynamic to some degree offense, held them to 17. Other than that, they've played like Denver, New Orleans, I understand, Carolina, Pittsburgh, right? So I understand that, but 21.5 is kind of twofold here. One, nobody has hit 21 points against the Chargers this year, albeit I mentioned their schedule, but even the Browns have only gone up and over that number once, and it was last week against the Ravens. The Ravens are a good team. They're not as good defensively as the Chargers, and secondarily, Jameis Winston got the start last week. Obviously, he's still going to start this week, but doesn't it just seem like that's the type of spot in which, your backup quarterback comes in and you have a really good spot, and then all of a sudden, next week you're kind of back down to where you were, right? This is not a world-beating Cleveland offense, even with Jameis Winston starting, but there's probably some hype around his first start of the season and that type of thing. So I think the Chargers have a good defense, and I think that the Cleveland Browns kind of return back down to form here. I don't think Jameis Winston's going to do too much, and forget the fact that the Chargers even have a good enough defense. This is still the 30th ranked DVOA team overall, the 32nd dead last DVOA ranked offense in the entire league. So yeah, over the last 3 games, they're averaging 19.7, and that's with that 29 kind of skew in the data. You know what I mean? So give me the Browns team total under. I guess I would look at the Chargers if I had to make a spread pick in this one, minus the 2 points as well as the full game under 42. But I think the Browns team total kind of hybridizes. That's my favorite word, right? Kind of beats around the bush and kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because I really don't want to have to bank on the Chargers offense. I don't think that they're all that tremendous. I don't think Cleveland's defense is good, but I don't think the Chargers offense is all that great. So for them to have to win by 2 or 3, like I do get a little hesitant there. So this is a good spot for me because hell, the Browns can go out there and still win. What if they win a 20-17 game? The Chargers defense technically did their job. Their offense dragged their feet, right? So that's why I kind of like the Browns team total under more than anything, because I don't know if I fully trust that that Chargers offense to, get up and pull ahead. I just think that we eliminate a lot of variables by taking the team total. And no major player props that I'm looking at in this one. If Winston's lines were kind of inflated, then I would have probably jumped to that, but it doesn't really look like that's the case. So probably skipping player props in this one as well. All right, now we're looking at the Giants taking on the Commanders. Giants getting 3.5 points at home. I've seen some 4s out there, so keep that in mind depending on what side you're on. And the total sitting at 44. I've also seen some 45s out there. So again, depending if you're looking at over or under, trying to get the best line out there and best odds. But overall, I should start with the injury here. We do have Daniels and Brian Robinson Jr. both listed as questionable in this spot. Daniels was questionable last week, ended up playing, so that's obviously a huge add, but overall, keep an eye on the injury report because everything I say after this is kind of assuming that those guys play overall. So I am going to probably take a peek here at Washington minus the points. Very similar to how we talked about that 3.5 number. It's probably something that I might buy a half point or buy a full point before it even gets to 4 type of thing to get it down to 2.5 or 3.5. But listen, these two teams played in, was it week 2 or 3? Week 2, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Could be week 3. And the Commanders won by 3 points, 21-18. I've seen this offense look even better and better and better as the season progresses, and you're like, oh, well, they only dropped, 18 points? Was it 18 points last week? It's like, yeah, I get that, but prior to that, they were averaging, 30 plus, and that's a decent Bears defense. This Giants defense is good too, but they already beat this Giants defense by 3 points. The Commanders have gotten a lot better offensively if Daniels plays, if the injuries go according to plan here. So I like them minus the points. That total is at 40. I'm going to lean towards the over as well. I feel like we're just not far enough removed from how electric this offense was just based on, one game. And yes, they still won that game, but it was a Hail Mary. I get it. It wasn't the cleanest game from Washington, but I'll lean towards the over in this spot as well. And even if, say, the Giants defense does step up and plays pretty well against a Commanders defense, which again, I'm not fully sold on the Giants defense. Pittsburgh dropped 26 points on their heads. Let's not forget that, okay? Pittsburgh dropped 26 points on their head. But if this Giants defense does, for whatever reason, step up, is the offense going to be able to pull above and ahead of, Jaden Daniels and this Washington offense? I'm not sure. So even if this is a low-scoring game, I could still see Washington winning it by a field goal, if that makes sense. So give me Washington minus the points as well as the over. Potentially taking a peek here at the Washington team total over. In fact, if we pull that up really quickly, I can get an updated line as we look at it. So Washington right now, their team total over 22.5. 150, it's a little juice. 23.5, 140. Over 24.5 is plus money. Now we're getting a little carried away. I feel like they're going to score 24 points in this game, so maybe we'd pay that, minus 140-ish. But that could be a way of doing it as well, because I don't know. Maybe I'm just the outlier in the room here that isn't fully sold on the Giants defense. So give me Washington minus points as well as the over. Hey, real quick, guys, before we get to the rest of the games, I want to talk to you about Underdog. Go ahead and check it out. You got this Jalen Hurts free square here, as well as up to $1,000 in bonus cash when signing up. I have a link in the pinned comment, as well as the description, whichever one is easier for you to find. But Underdog is a great way to play player props. You go over there, put 2 or more based on higher or lower on their projections, put 2 or more into an entry. You could put a bunch in there and win up to 1,000 times your money over on Underdog. It's really, really cool. Again, free square, 1,000% deposit bonus there, as well as just the absolute fun that it provides you each and every Sunday. They have it for all sports as well. So go check out Underdog, link in the pinned comment as well as the description. Let's go and jump back into the rest of these games. Next up, we're looking at Baltimore taking on the Broncos. A few things to note here. I will give credit to this Denver team and their defense. I do believe in their defense. Now, have they played anyone spectacular? Not necessarily. Seattle, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, New York, Jets, Las Vegas, Chargers, New Orleans, Carolina. Like a pretty remarkably bad offenses going against them so far this year. But I still, based on even the eye test and some advanced numbers, they still do look good. Like they're the 5th ranked defensive DVOA team. So I give them a lot of credit there, okay? But I don't necessarily know if they fully compete with this Baltimore team. And they just added Deontay Johnson too. And this is a big number, right? -8. Like, the books are coming in strong with this one, so I think I do lean Baltimore minus the points. Do I have the cojones to lay that number against what I think is a good defense? I'm not fully sure, but to me, I think that this is by far and away the best offense that the Broncos have faced. They're on the road here. Baltimore's coming off of a loss against Cleveland. Like, it could be kind of a show-out game for them. Couple things to note. Lamar Jackson's questionable. I expect him to play. I feel like we haven't heard too much about him not playing. So that's obviously massive. And then, yeah, Deontay Johnson, we don't necessarily know his full role here, but he's listed as good to go and whatnot. So that just allows another wide receiver for him to throw to. Now he has Flowers, Johnson, he has Bateman, even Nelson Aguilar gets some run. Like, this offense is scary, and we haven't even mentioned Derrick Henry, right? So overall, I think that this is a Baltimore spot. I don't really see how they don't put up a decent number. I considered their team total over as well, because then that's a way of, I guess, in a sense, not having to lay the 8 points, right? Just go out there and score a bunch of points. But you have to go all the way up to like 27.5, 26.5 to make it worth it. That's when it gets to the -130, -120. And that is a pretty damn big number against what I've already given credit to a good defense. So I think I leave it at Baltimore minus the 8. Maybe I look at like Baltimore in the first half. That way they, obviously they have way less time, but Baltimore minus like 4 in the first half, something like that. Overall, I do like Baltimore. It's going to be tough for me to get to that 8. Maybe we do it in some sort of a parlay or a teaser or something. In terms of the total, I like the over. I think this is a good Denver defense. I've said it, but to me, Baltimore's defense isn't all that great. I think guys like Cortland Sutton should have a decent game as well if you want to look at him from a player prop perspective. But I think that this is a Baltimore defense that can allow some chunk plays, so I think Bo Nix could do okay. And then I've already mentioned, I think Baltimore's offense is better than this good defense on the Denver side of things, and I don't think that they face anyone as dynamic or as good as this Baltimore team by far. So I'll lean over 46.5 in this spot as well. And like I said, Cortland Sutton could be an interesting look here for me from a player prop perspective. His numbers, 47.5, I think, is receiving yards, but the 3.5 receptions is definitely something that I'd consider as well. Last week he had 11 targets. He reeled in, I think it was like 7 or 8 passes, right? This year he's averaging 7.3 targets, and he's reeling the ball in 4 times, and it's been decent as of late, right? So yeah, I don't mind this spot for Cortland Sutton whatsoever. Bengals taking on the Raiders. Key number here at 7.5 points. I do think that this game should matter a lot to the Bengals here. They're 3-5 on the year. We're halfway through the year. Like, things are getting a little narrow for them to be a playoff team and whatnot. But obviously, I feel like the Raiders don't have the mentality that it's even possible, where the Bengals are kind of like, all right, we need to bounce back here. We're beating bad teams, losing to good teams, right? Like, if you look at what they've done this season, I guess they did lose to New England, so there's an outlier. But then they lose to Kansas City, they lose to Washington, they beat Carolina, lose to Baltimore, beat the Giants, beat the Browns, lose to the Philadelphia's, I almost said the Phillies, and then the Sixers. The Eagles, they lose to them last week. So kind of like you're a mediocre team right now, beating bad, losing to good. I get it. But where would we put the Raiders, right? In the bad category. And this Raiders team honestly didn't look terrible against the Chiefs in their last game. So I think that they, could be competitive in this one, but not enough for the Bengals to, not enough to take them plus 7.5. So I will lean Bengals, much like I've been doing in this video a lot. I'd probably buy that to 7 or 6.5, pay a little bit more juice, but the key number is important to me and more valuable. But I'd also look at the over 46.5. If there's one thing we know about the Cincinnati team, it's that their defense stinks. Now, I know the Raiders offense isn't all that great, but you're telling me if they can get to 20 points like they did against Kansas City, that we would be, not thrilled with that. Like, if this is a at minimum 27 to 20 game, we just need, actually that would cover it anyways, right? But 27 to 20 would do it, and we would cover our alternate spread on the Bengals. So I guess that's how I see this one going, getting to 47 points and the Bengals winning it. Now, in terms of a team total, because we've looked at that multiple ways, and that was something that we were on fire with last week. So I don't want to lose sight of us kind of eliminating a lot of variables and rolling with team totals. You can get the Bengals over 24.5 for -142. A lot of juice there, but now you don't have to worry about the Raiders. You know what I mean? So maybe that's of consideration. I do have a couple player props I like in this one, both chases. I like Chase Brown to score a touchdown. That's plus 107. And I like Jamar Chase as well. The problem is he's -110 to -130. At some point, you're a little juiced out. Like, we cashed his touchdown prop. What was it, a couple days ago? I don't think it was last week. No, those are the running backs. So what, maybe 3 weeks ago? I said days, but 3 weeks ago for like plus 130, right? Now he's minus 130. It's kind of tough to swallow that pill. So maybe we don't roll with those, but I do think that the Bengals do look good offensively. So I'd consider their team total, but I like the over in this game overall. And I think that they win this one substantially, or at least they honestly should win this one substantially. I feel like I am being held hostage having to cover this game here and break it down. Panthers taking on the Saints. They did play each other already this season. That was when everyone thought that the Saints were going to be incredible. They scored 46 on the Panthers' head. They won by like a crazy amount of points. Now you have a team in the Saints that is, definitely struggling. I don't think that we can deny that one. Derek Carr's questionable. Kamara's questionable. We know Rashid Shaheed is out. I think Olave should be playing. But overall, this is still such a messy game. If Derek Carr plays, sure, I'll lay the 7 points. I don't think I'll bet it myself because I think you have to be a pretty big psycho to like either of these squads. If he doesn't play, if Alvin Kamara doesn't play, I'll lean towards the under because I'm not exactly sure where offense comes from here. But I will say is that you have two defenses that stink out loud. So it's like at some point, one of these two teams will score a decent amount of points because of their opposition lacking. So not my favorite spot here. I'll go Saints in the under. But yeah, if I put Saints or the under in the pinned comment, that means that I'm going, something's wrong, blink twice, like contact someone, because I can't see anybody loving this spot. In fact, if you are betting on this game, even if it's a player prop, let me know in the comments what you're rolling with, because I think you're an absolute psycho, but I love you even more for it, because that means you're dedicated to the craft. But yeah, I just can't see myself rolling with much in this game. Honestly, Saints-Panthers, probably the worst matchup we've seen this year. Falcons taking on the Cowboys. Falcons laying 3 points at home. Total all the way up at 51.5. That obviously does make sense. You have two decent offenses, but more importantly, you have two defenses that are kind of lackluster. So I get why that total's so high. I don't know if I would go out there and jump to it, but I can't really lean towards the under. So we'll start there. Simple lean towards the over. I don't think I play it myself. I think Atlanta's offense should have some serious success against this Dallas defense. We've seen even San Francisco, who kind of struggled, put up a decent number last week against Dallas, where they scored 30, right? Detroit scored 47. Pittsburgh, that was Dallas's last win. They still scored 17. That's not a very good offense. So I do think that Atlanta has some success here. The question really becomes, is this Atlanta defense built to stop the passing game, I guess I should say, or just the game overall of Dallas? And I'm not quite sure. Like, they have a better run defense than they do pass defense, so that's alarming because we know that this Dallas team stinks at running the ball, right? But they're Dak Prescott, CD, like, they're decent at moving the ball through the air. In fact, this is because they've been losing, but third most passing yards per game, second highest frequency. Last 3 weeks, the sixth highest passing yards per game at 256.7. And you look at what Atlanta has been doing, they're the third worst in terms of allowing passing yards per game. Now, when you look at raw numbers like that obviously you have to factor in the fact that, well, Atlanta could be winning, and then, Dallas is trailing in different games. So, like, these numbers and the frequency is obviously, huge there. But overall, I think Dak could have a decent game. I still am going to lean towards the Falcons, though, because I think that they have more weapons. They can run the ball, and this Dallas defense stinks. If this was Dallas's defense last year and this number was here, I'd say I think Dak and CD could have a good little 1-2 combo game today, and the defense might hold up. I can't really see how the defense holds up, so I'm going to lean towards the Falcons, but it wasn't the easiest of decisions. I think Dak, looking at his passing yards or his completions for plus money, could be good. I think CD Lamb has a good game, even though his numbers are getting astronomical. One spot that I also don't mind, it's on the Falcon side of things, is Bijan Robinson over in his receptions. Right now, his receptions, I think, is at, let's see, we have it up in front of us. Yeah, 3.5 for plus 100. He had 7 receptions last week. This is a Dallas defense that has a lot of holes and a lot of spots, and they're very soft. So we could see some dump off passes. In fact, he's gotten in the last 3 weeks 4, 5, and 7 targets. So even if he catches all of his targets, which is not always that normal, right? He would have hit this in 3 straight weeks. More so, he's only hit it in 4 of his 8 games, so 50% here. But I still like Bijan. It's plus 100, right? So with a plus number next to the odds, I like him to have 3 receptions. I also don't mind the idea of Kyle Pitts having a decent game as well. He's been crushing it. But from a player prop perspective, I like Dak, I like CD, I like Bijan, and I like Kyle Pitts overall. But to me, I have to lean over as well as the Falcons. I almost wanted to get to Dallas in this spot because at some point Dallas is going to win a game when it's like, oh my God, they won, because they're still the Cowboys. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Hopefully that makes sense. So I don't think it's this week. I lean towards the Falcons. Unfortunately, I kind of wanted to get to the Cowboys. Bills taking on the Dolphins. Bills 6-2 on the season here, 5-3 against the spread. Miami 2-5 this year. But what I think is even more alarming is the 1-6 against the spread, the 1-2 on the road. So this is a tough season for Miami. Now, obviously, Tua was out for the majority of that. He is now back. I give them a little bit of an uptick there. And they competed. They scored more points than they had in I think it was the last 3 weeks. They were like only 6 points behind in 1 week last week, right? So obviously that offense gets a little bit of a juice uptick from Tua, but Buffalo has been playing so well. They've won 3 straight games, 31 points, 34 points. They dropped 23 in that primetime game against the Jets. Like, I can see why Buffalo's such heavy favorites, and I think I do lean in their direction, but I'm not all that sold on it when I think about how this team may just snap back to what they were in Miami, right? Like, they scored a lot of points last week, end of the game field goal, won it for Arizona. So I almost reluctantly lean towards Buffalo, but they've just been playing so consistently good in the last few weeks that I can't fade them here. But if you're on the Dolphins side of things, don't let me deter you off of it. I think it's going to be a high scoring game that totals at 49. Now, the one sort of concern I have is that we always have these high totals. Like, when these two teams played earlier in the year, that's when Tua got hurt, right? And it was 31-10. A few years ago, or no, at the end of the year last year, we thought it was going to be an absolute high scoring game, and it was 21-14. So these two teams play, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's always high scoring, and then it's not. But to me, with Tua coming back, hopefully he stays healthy. I do think that this is and Tyreek Hill actually is questionable. So is Amari Cooper, but I think they've both been practicing. Maybe don't hold me to that, but I think they both play. If they both play, I don't mind the over 49 here, and I might like that more than anything, just because then I can give Tua and the now back to what we were offense a good look here and give them a little bit of respect. While I still think the Bills will go out there and score, and it's not like this Bills defense has been all that impressive. I think that their defense as of late has looked good because they've played Seattle, the Jets, Tennessee. They did kind of go through that gauntlet of playing Baltimore and Houston, and they held up okay. I mean, Baltimore dropped 35, so maybe we don't include that. But Houston, they held them to 20 or 23, right? So I don't think that this is the best of Bills defense. I think it's a little skewed by their recent history. So I think Miami can put up a decent number. So yeah, give me the over 49 in this spot. I also don't mind a look at Achane in terms of even looking at his yards or his receiving yards. So maybe his rush plus receiving. If I had to pick one, I'd probably just take a peek at his over 49.5 rushing yards. In that game earlier when they played this season, he had 96 rushing yards. This season, last 2 games here, 77, 97. If he gets the rushing attempts, which I hope he will, he's had 10 plus in 3 of the last 4 weeks. I like his odds here against a Buffalo defense that isn't necessarily all that tremendous at stopping the run. So Devon Achane over 49.5 yards is probably a player prop that we consider as well. All right, next one we're looking at here is going to be Philadelphia taking on Jacksonville. This Eagles team seems like it may be hitting its stride here. They've won 3 straight games. They're 5-2 this year, 2-1 at home. Jacksonville, coming off of that loss to Green Bay, they did compete. I guess I'll give them that credit. But ultimately, Green Bay won that game 30-27. Their defense is so bad, but the Eagles' defense isn't all that phenomenal either. It's looked a lot better as of late, but they played Cleveland, New York, and then Cincinnati just didn't have it in their previous game. So I don't know how much weight I want to put in to their defense. I think my immediate lean here is either Eagles team total over or just the over in the game in general. I think the Eagles team total is getting a little bit up there. We've cashed that a couple weeks in a row now, but now it's up like 4 points. So I think I just go total over in the game, because if we see what we saw to Jacksonville last week, which they looked pretty good against Green Bay, and then the week prior they looked pretty good against New England, yeah, if they go out there and give you 21, 22 points, I think that this over is looking pretty damn good, because I think the Eagles offense is ready to start firing 20, 28, 37. Like, they're building up right now and getting good at the right time. So I like the over more than probably anything in this spot. I'd also lean Philadelphia, but I'd buy it to -6.5. I think that they do roll to some degree. But what I might like even more than that is Jalen Hurts over 213.5 passing yards. This is a really bad secondary in terms of Jacksonville. They have allowed they rank 31st, so the second most in terms of passing yards against this season. And what we've seen so far, Tua crush them. Week 1, we saw Josh Allen crush them. CJ Stroud crush them. Joe Flacco threw for nearly 360 yards against them. Caleb Williams, 226. Last week, Jordan Love didn't even have that great of a game. I think he threw an interception, no touchdowns, right? Threw for nearly 200. And before that, this is the big one, Drake May threw for 276. So I think Jalen Hurts can get to 214 here. The problem being is that they have such a good run game, good offensive line. Like, they don't always need Jalen Hurts to throw for that much. Like, they won 28-3 against the Giants. He threw for 114. You know what I mean? So Yeah, that's a little bit tough, but overall, I still like the spot, and I think that this is a good spot for him to pass the ball. If I like something more than the yards, it's probably maybe his passing completions. That's minus 125 for 17.5 right now. Problem being he hasn't hit that in 3 straight weeks, but Jacksonville allows the 4th most completion percentage and then the 3rd most pass attempts against. So yeah, could be a good spot for Jalen Hurts overall as well, but I think that there could be a lot of points scored here, which would help that in that case too. Hey, real quick, guys, shout out the merch on FadeMe.store. I'm rocking the Make Money on Sunday t-shirt. Head over to FadeMe.store. We have tons of new products and cool products over there. If you do want to support what we're doing here and get some great merch at the same time, we have the brand new Gambler Fall 2024 collection that is now available. If you want to check that out, it comes with a premium crew neck. This thing is amazing. A windbreaker, which we have not done before, water resistant. A super comfort hoodie, which is one of my favorite products we've ever launched. And then the rope hat, which is absolutely fire as well. But head over there, guys. You can find something you like. We have some cool stuff. We have some fun stuff. A lot of gambling related merchandise like the Make Money on Sunday. That's what I'm rocking right now. Go ahead and check it out. That link is going to be in the pinned comment. Use code SUNDAY, SUNDAY. Spelling Bee Champ. In fact, I'll type it out for you here. Sunday, you're going to get 10% off this week. So go ahead and check that out, guys. Sunday, 10% off over on FadeMe.store. All right, Cardinals taking on the Bears. This is a tough one, so I could see this going either way for either team. But I think this Cardinals offense is, to some degree, starting to round into something. They've played a tough-ish schedule. I mean, even going up against San Francisco, Green Bay, then the Chargers, they won in that primetime spot. And then when they played Miami, it's like that's with Tua back, you know what I mean? So I think this Cardinals team is looking good now. Chicago could have won last week. That would have been their 4th win in a row. So I give them a little bit of credit too. But what I would say is 1 point spread here. This is essentially a pick 'em. I think I just look at whoever's at home because I can see some similarities between the teams here. So I do lean towards the Cardinals, but I really do not mean to talk anyone off of the ledge if they like the Bears in this spot. The Bears have a very good pass defense. That is the part of the offense that is starting to uptick for the Cardinals. I kind of worry in terms of what we might see out of James Conner if he's able to do his thing. Now you look at the Bears from a looking in, you're like, oh, they have a good run defense too, but from a DVOA metric, 22nd rank, so actually bottom 3rd-ish of the league. You know what I mean? Kind of below middle of the pack. So I think James Conner could have a decent game here, and that's going to be the way that I believe this Cardinals team has some success. So yeah, I like James Conner on the ground, whether it's his attempts or his yards, or even to score a touchdown, as well as the Cardinals minus the points. The total's at 45. Before last week, we saw this Bears team kind of kicking into gear offensively. I've said that about the Cardinals now. I'm going to lean toward the over. If this is a low-scoring game, I think the Bears have the advantage. If we see a lot of points, I think the Cardinals have the advantage. Green Bay taking on Detroit. This definitely has the makings to be one of, if not the best game this week here. Green Bay comes into this one 6-2, 3-1 at home. Detroit 6-1. They're 3-0 on the road this season, and their offense is going off. Just their last 4 games here: 42, 47, 31, and 52. Are you kidding me? Green Bay, their offense doesn't look too shabby either. This is their last 6 games: 30, 29, 24, 34, 24, 30. So 48 here, I think, is a total that we can kind of target. Now, I will say, both the defenses aren't all that terrible. I mean, I think Detroit has the upper hand defensively, 3rd best team in terms of defensive DVOA rankings, but Green Bay's in the top 12. They're at 10 pass and 12 run, overall 12th. So I think that we do see 2 sneaky good defenses, even though everyone's going to focus on the offenses here. And I think that if the defenses are okay, right, then at some point the offense has to succeed. And I think that Detroit's offense is a hell of a lot more dynamic. So if this was even 4.5, I might slip in a Packers spot here, but it's at 2. I'm going to lean towards the Lions. I think that they're cruising. Now, if Green Bay was coming off a tough loss or something like that, like if they had that heartbreaking loss against Jacksonville, they ended up winning it by 3, but if they lost that game, I might look at them. So I'm trying to paint the picture that this was a close one for me, but ultimately I just cannot look past how dominant this Detroit team has been. Again, like, they beat Minnesota. They beat Tennessee. It was a good defense. They crushed Dallas and poured it on Seattle. They almost and Seattle hasn't looked the same since. I mean, they did have that win against Atlanta, so maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but overall, Detroit for me and the over in this spot. Player prop-wise, I've bounced back and forth so much because there's so much talent, so I think I ultimately I'm going to end up sticking away from it. Overall, I think that we could see a decent amount of passes from Green Bay, so maybe Jordan Love's attempts. By the way, Jordan Love's questionable, so is Josh Jacobs. Probably should have started with that, but I think that they both play in a big game like this. But I think that we could see him throw the ball a lot and maybe them not run the ball too much. So maybe we look at attempts for Jordan Love up, and then Josh Jacobs is down, especially if he's a little banged up. Maybe take the under in his yards and his attempts. But this has the makings to be a very good game. Keep an eye on the pin comment to see if we roll with this, and if nothing's down there for it, we probably just end up watching this one as a fan saying this is a damn good game. Seahawks taking on the Rams. I like the Rams in this spot. They're -1. Probably just take them on the money line if needed. Now, the one thing I'll say is why I like them was that the receivers looked back to normal, right? Cooper looked good. Puka Nacua looked good. But now Puka Nacua may not play again. I think he's hurt his, he's re-injured. So that's something to obviously note big time. But I don't know. Maybe I'll say it here. Maybe it's too early in week 9, but I think I'm out on the Seahawks. DK Metcalf's questionable again. He didn't play last week. If he doesn't play, I like the Rams even more. But I just can't really see much consistency out of this team. Like they still pass the ball plenty and a lot, but their run game is terrible. This is not a good Rams defense. I get it, but I just don't necessarily see how without DK this Seattle team moves the ball consistently. So I'm on the Rams minus the 1, or I guess, you know, taking them on the money line. The total's at 47.5. I really don't have the strongest of play there. Maybe I would take a peek at the over just because I don't think the Rams defense is good, and I think that, you know, their offense, especially if Puka Nacua is good to go, I think they can put up a decent number. And Seattle, though they've struggled as of late, like I said when we talked about last game, they did have that good win against Atlanta, and they're still they should get to like 17 to 24 points, right? Buffalo, when they scored 10 in the rain, is kind of an outlier. Prior to that, they still had a threshold of what seemed like 21-ish. So I'll lean towards the over, but I think it's Rams money line or nothing for me in this spot. But Puka Nacua being questionable and DK being questionable are two massive things to keep an eye on in this one. And guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's show. If you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment 31. Like I tell you guys all the time, I always love to see the returning users and names that are sticking around to the end of the video. So I appreciate the heck out of you guys. We are eyeing 100,000 subscribers. Who knows? Maybe we've hit it by the time this video comes out. That'd be pretty damn impressive, but I wouldn't be pissed if we did, right? But hopefully you guys do enjoy these videos, and I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.